Journey to the West, an audio drama series. Chapter 5, Part 1. We spoke of how Sun Wukong settled down in heaven. Our heaven-equaling great sage was, after all, a fiendish monkey. He had no concept of rankings and class, and never minded how much he was paid, as long as his name was in the books. The immortal clerks of the 2 offices under his residence served him day and night. All he had to think of were the 3 meals of the day and the bed he slept in at night. Apart from that, nothing restrained him, and he enjoyed a life of freedom. When he had the time, he would meet up with acquaintances as he traveled from palace to palace, or he would make new friends as they swore by their bonds. When he saw the 3 pure ones, he would call them elders. If he met up with the 4 emperors, he would call them your majesties. As for the star officers, heavenly generals, and all the deities of the world above, he simply treated them like siblings and addressed each other by name. Today he would travel east, and tomorrow he would swing towards the west. Back and forth in clouds, there was no knowing where he would be. One day, as the Jade Emperor was at the morning court session, Xu Jingyang the Perfected came out of the ranks. He kowtowed and reported, "We now have the heaven-equaling great sage who travels around with nothing to do. He befriended all constellations of the skies and addressed them as friends, regardless of hierarchy. I fear that such idleness will lead to trouble in the future. Why not give him something to look after? Hopefully, he will not start any trouble elsewhere." The Jade Emperor heard this and immediately released an imperial edict. The Monkey King happily arrived and asked, "Your Majesty, what promotion or award led to you summoning me here?" The Jade Emperor said, "We saw that you have been idle and will now give you something to be in charge of. For the moment, you shall manage the Divine Peach Garden. Do take care of it every day." The great sage was joyous and thanked him, as usual, with a gesture and call before exiting. He had no patience for a busier time and instantly went inside the Divine Peach Garden for inspection. The garden's 土地, the tutelary of soil, blocked his way and asked, "Where are you going, great sage?" The great sage answered, "I was appointed by the Jade Emperor to temporarily take charge of the Divine Peach Garden. I have come for inspection." The tutelary of soil hastily greeted him and called out all the workers who hoed the soil, carried the water, trimmed the trees, and swept the ground. They all kowtowed to the great sage and welcomed him inside. And what did he see? Radiant blossoms filled the trees, heavy fruits weighed down the branches. You never knew when the blossoms and peaches would appear, for the trees knew no seasons. Those that ripened early looked red and tipsy. Those not yet there still held on to the stem in green. Under the trees, curious flowers grew alongside exotic blossoms. Never withering during the year, they exhibited every color that you could name. Such peach trees didn't grow from mortal seeds, but were planted by Queen Mother of the Jade Pool herself. The great sage looked and played around for a long while before asking the tutelary of soil, "How many trees are here?" The tutelary of soil answered, "There are 3,600 of them. The 1,200 at the front have tiny flowers and small fruits. They ripen every 3,000 years. If a human ate them, they will become an immortal and understand the way, enjoying a robust and light body. The 1,200 in the middle have layers of flowers and solid fruits. They ripen every 6,000 years. If a human ate them, they will ascend in rosy clouds and live forever. The 1,200 at the back are the rare breeds, named Purple Vein and Yellow Core. They ripen every 9,000 years. If a human ate them, they will be alive as long as heaven, earth, the sun, and the moon exist. The great sage heard this and was beside himself with joy. He gave the trees a careful inspection and checked the pavilions and chambers as well before returning to his residence. From that day on, he would pay a visit and enjoy himself there every few days. He no longer met up with friends, nor did he travel around. One day, he saw that up on the branches of an old tree, more than half of the peaches were ripe. He thought about giving them a taste firsthand. However, the tutelary of soil, the workers, as well as all the immortal clerks from his residence were inconveniently following him around. He came up with a trick and said, "Please wait for me outside the gate for the time being. Allow me to take a short nap in this pavilion." The deities indeed all left. The Monkey King then took off his crown and robe before climbing the tree. He specifically chose the bigger, fully ripened peaches. After picking a load, he sat on the branch and enjoyed the fruit to his heart's content. Only when he became full would he jump off the tree and put his garments back on. Then all the servants would be summoned and return to the residence with him. A couple days later, he would go there again and play the same trick, to steal as many peaches as he pleased. One morning, Wang Mu Niang Niang, Lady Queen Mother, was going to host a banquet. She'd opened her treasure chambers and arranged in the jade pool what they call 蟠桃盛会, meaning the grand feast of divine peaches. She then ordered the immortal maidens red gown, blue gown, white gown, black gown, purple gown, yellow gown, and green gown to bring their baskets to the divine peach garden to pick peaches and prepare for the feast. The immortal maidens of the 7 gowns came straight to the garden gate. Whom they saw guarding the entrance were the garden's tutelary of soil and the many workers, along with the immortal clerks from the 2 offices under the heaven-equaling residence. The immortal maidens approached and said, "We have come by the Queen Mother's imperial edict to pick peaches for the banquet." The tutelary of soil explained, "Do hold on for a moment, immortal maidens. This year isn't like the last. The Jade Emperor has appointed the heaven-equaling great sage to oversee this place. We wouldn't dare open up the garden until we have informed him." The immortal maidens asked, "Where is the great sage, then?" The tutelary of soil answered, "He is inside. Due to exhaustion, he's been sleeping in the pavilion by himself." The immortal maiden said, "If so, just go fetch him. This can't be delayed." The tutelary of soil then entered with them. They arrived at the floral pavilion, but the great sage was nowhere to be seen. Only his clothes and crown were left inside, and no one knew where he was. They searched everywhere and still found nothing. As it turned out, the great sage had played for a while and had several peaches before turning into a tiny person about 2 cun tall, which would be about the length of an index finger. He then found a big tree and fell asleep under the thick leaves of a top branch. The immortal maidens of the 7 gowns said, "We have come by an imperial edict. How can we go back empty-handed if we still can't find the great sage?" A divine clerk suggested from the side, "Immortal maidens, if you have come by the imperial edict, hesitate no more. Our great sage has a habit of idly traveling about. I bet he's just left to meet with his friends. You shall go pick your peaches now, and we can deliver the message later on your behalf." The immortal maidens agreed and went into the forest to pick peaches. They filled 2 baskets from the trees at the front, then 3 baskets from the trees in the middle. By the time they reached the trees at the back, they found only sparse flowers and fruits on the branches, and the few fruits left hanging were still hairy, stem-bound, and green. The ripe ones, of course, had already been eaten up by the Monkey King. The 7 immortal maidens looked around and finally saw the only peach on a south-bending branch that was half red and half white. The maiden in blue gown pulled the branch down and let the maiden in red gown pluck the peach off before letting go. Unfortunately, the great sage happened to be sleeping on this very branch, and all this commotion startled him awake. The great sage returned to his true form and pulled the golden hoop rod out from his ear. With a bounce, the rod turned as thick as a rice bowl as he cried out, "Where are you monsters from? How dare you steal my peaches?" The 7 immortal maidens were so terrified they all knelt down and pled, "Calm your rage, great sage. We are no monsters, but the immortal maidens of the 7 gowns sent here by the Lady Queen Mother, and we are here to pick the divine peaches. And once the treasure chambers are open, there will be a grand feast of divine peaches. When we arrived just now, we saw the gardens too leery of soil and other deities. We couldn't find you, great sage. We feared we were running out of time to fulfill the Queen Mother's imperial edict. That was why we started picking peaches without waiting for your return, great sage. Please forgive us." Hearing this, the great sage's anger subsided, and he asked rather joyously, "Please rise, immortal maidens. When the Queen Mother opens her chamber and hosts a banquet, who will she invite?" The immortal maidens answered, "There are old rules passed on from previous banquets. Those invited include the Buddha and all the Bodhisattva of the Western Heaven, Guan Yin of the South Pole, as well as gods from the East, North, and Middle. Such are the elders of the 5 quarters. In addition, there are the officers of the 5 celestial dippers, the 3 pure ones, the 4 emperors and other deities of the upper 8 caverns. Then from the middle 8 caverns there are the Jade Emperor and all the gods of the seas and mountains. Lastly, there are the lower 8 caverns, consisting of the leaders of the underworld and other earthbound deities. Deities from every palace and hall will all attend this wonderful feast of divine peaches." The great sage asked with a smile, "Am I invited?" The immortal maidens answered, "We haven't heard about that yet." The great sage said, "I am the heaven-equaling great sage. Even if you invite Elder Sun to the top seat, I wouldn't see any problem with it." The immortal maiden said, "These are only old rules of the past. We don't know how things are for the upcoming banquet just yet." The great sage said, "That is true. This is hardly your fault. Do stay put, all of you. I shall ask around and see if they're really inviting me." Splendid great sage! Reciting a spell with the corresponding hand gesture, he shouted to the immortal maidens, "Freeze! Freeze! Freeze!" This, in fact, was the magic of immobilization. The immortal maidens of the 7 gowns now all had their eyes opened wide, as if in a daze, as they stood still under the peach trees. The great sage then launched an auspicious cloud and leapt out of the garden, straight towards the jade pool. Flying past divine mist and rainbow clouds, and witnessing white cranes and purple herbs on his way, he suddenly saw one particular god approaching. The radiant deity went by the name of 赤脚大仙, the great barefoot immortal. The two bumped into each other face to face, with the great sage lowering his head and trying to come up with a trick. He wanted to mislead the true immortal and attend the banquet in secret. So he asked, "Reverend Taoist, where are you heading?" The great immortal answered, "By the kind invitation of the Queen Mother, I am heading to the grand feast of divine peaches." The great sage said, "You have no idea, Reverend Taoist. Seeing my somersault cloud is so fast, the Jade Emperor has ordered me to invite you all of the 5 directions to the Hall of Omnipresent Brightness for the ceremonial rehearsal. Afterwards, you shall head to the banquet." The great immortal was an upright and sincere man, so he took the lie for truth, only muttering, "In previous years we would just have the rehearsal and express our gratitude at the Jade Pool. Why change to the Hall of Omnipresent Brightness and then go to the Jade Pool banquet?" With no other choice, he could only turn his cloud around and head to the Hall of Omnipresent Brightness. Meanwhile, riding his own cloud, the great sage recited a spell. And with a shake, he transformed into the great barefoot immortal before dashing towards the Jade Pool. Soon, he arrived at the treasure chambers. Lowering his cloud, he moved inside with light steps. And what did he see? The place was permeated with auspicious mist and spell-binding fragrance. Divine animals and plants decorated the space, which was already filled with furniture crafted from the rarest materials. On the tables were delicacies like dragon liver and phoenix marrow, as well as bear paws and the lips of a mysterious beast. Every dish was tasty, just as every fruit was fresh. Everything was neatly displayed, but no deity has arrived yet. The great sage had hardly taken in all that was displayed in front of him before the aroma of wine suddenly found its way into his nose. He swiftly turned around and eyed the long corridor to the right. There were several immortal clerks in charge of brewing, workers who spread out fermented grains, Taoists who carried the water, and youngsters tending the fire. Some were washing and scrubbing the containers, a sign that the fragrant liquid of fine jade that was immortal wine had already been made. The great sage couldn't help but drool from the corner of his mouth and was about to get his fill. However, all those folks were still there. He therefore played a magic trick. Plucking several hairs from himself, he chewed them into smaller bits and spat them out before reciting a spell, calling, "Change!" The hairs then transformed into drowsy bugs and hopped onto everyone's face. Look at these people, with their hands shaking and heads bobbing. They soon closed their eyes, stopped their tasks, and fell into deep sleep. The great sage then grabbed all the delicacies and rare dishes before walking into the depths of the long corridor. Leaning against the tanks and jars of wine, he drank till he was numb. By the time he was sated, he was in a drunken stupor, when it finally occurred to him. Terrible, terrible. The guests will be here in no time. They blame it all on me. What should I do if they catch me right away? I better return to my residence and sleep. Splendid great sage. Swaggering and drunk, his mind and body crashed where the wine took them, and soon he was heading in the wrong direction. It wasn't the heaven-equaling residence that he reached, but Dou Shuai Gong, the Dushta Palace. The moment he saw it, he was suddenly alarmed and said, "The Dushta Palace lies above the heaven of 33. It's the grieveless heaven, home of Taishang Laojun, the supreme and venerable elder, also known as Laozi. How did I get here by mistake? Forget about it. I've always wanted to pay this old man a visit, but never made the trip. Now that I happen to drop by, I shall briefly check in on him." He then tidied his clothes and went inside. The elder was nowhere to be seen, nor was there anyone else present. As it turned out, the elder, accompanied by Dibankla, Buddha of the past, attended a lecture on the triple-story Tai chamber at the Zhuling Magic Palace dais. Accompanying them on the left and right were a group of immortal youths, generals, officers, and clerks. The great sage went all the way into the alchemy room, but still found no one around. What he did see was an elixir stove, and next to that was an oven with a fire burning inside. Next to the oven, there were 5 bottle gourds, or calabashes, which stored the golden magic pellets that Laozi made. The great sage was delighted and said, "This is the ultimate treasure of immortals. Since I was inspired by the way, I have been exposed to the truth of how interior and exterior alchemy are two of the same thing. Producing golden magic pellets to help people is really a thing I should do as well. Too bad I haven't got the time since I started living here. It must be fate that on this very day that I bumped into this thing. Lao Tzu is not around. Let me try a few of these fresh pellets for a test. He then emptied all the bottle gourds and ate the pellets as if he was eating fried beans. And before long, the magic pellets filled up his stomach and snapped him sober. He began pondering to himself, No good, no good. This crime is bigger than heaven itself. Should the Jade Emperor be disturbed, my life would be in danger. Time to run. Better to be a king in the world below. He then ran out of the palace but didn't go back the way he came. Instead, he used the magic of invisibility to escape through the western gate of heaven. Soaring on his cloud, he soon returned within the borders of the mountain of flower and fruit.